Welcome to another episode of Dueker Sports. I'm your co-host Christian Lunday, and across from me on the other side of the screen is my friend Dylan Dueker. What's up, Dylan?
Just trying to survive this crazy offseason that we're witnessing.
I know there's so many fake Twitter accounts that people are going crazy about. One was a real account. One was Gerald McCoy. He about got me with this Christian McCaffrey to the Chiefs stuff, and I was pretty mad once he posted later that he was a fool and just I don't know where he was getting his information from. But man, Twitter's stay off them Twitter streets.
I did see you posting about that, and I was checking all my sources, and I'm like, I don't see this move happening.
That's what
Uh,
I asked if can anyone confirm because I was getting really hyped. I was like, heck yeah. I mean,
mhm.
that's going to be a costly contract, but man, no one could confirm.
I'm seeing a thing right now. I don't know if it's true or not, but just like an hour or two ago, I saw. Did Michael Thomas sign with the Bengals, or is that just speculation?
I have not heard or seen or gotten any update that he signed with the Bengals. I saw uh this Vikings page say that Zadarius Smith went to the Vikings, and then that was a fake account like 20 minutes later. So,
So he did meet with the Vikings today, so maybe
yep.
that's where they're getting it from. But yeah,
Well,
you're
there's a
right.
difference between meet and sign. Maybe don't use those words. I do not think it means what you think it means.
That's true.
Well, I guess that's how we're gonna introduce today's show, though, because we're gonna go over the top 10 NFL offseason moves so far. We made a episode last week where we did an entire draft, and as soon as we got done, Tom Brady came out of retirement. So I'm wondering what kind of crazy stuff's gonna happen after we're done with this episode. All right, so I'll go first this time. Here's my list of top 10 most impactful offseason transactions. So I'm going to give my honorable mentions first. We've got Justin Reed signing by the Chiefs, a young safety, 25 years old, kind of replaces Tyrann Mathieu's role. There's still a chance Tyrann Mathieu can come back and play, but Justin Reed is going to be the safety for the future. Russell Gage is another addition to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that I think is a low-key, really good signing. Mitchell Trubisky to the Steelers. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Mitchell Trubisky, but that's still a notable transaction there, a notable move by the Steelers to get another quarterback to compete with the rest. And then Von Miller, I do not have him in my top 10. I think they grossly overpaid, but the Buffalo Bills said we need to get after Patrick Mahomes better, so we're going to draft a guy who's made an entire Hall of Fame career out of it. So those are my honorable mentions. Here's my top 10. Number one, Deshaun Watson. You trade for Deshaun Watson. You give him the most guaranteed money I've ever seen, especially for someone who's got 22 allegations against him of sexual assault. You move heaven and earth to get this man. After it looked like he spurned you for a minute. But I think he changes that entire organization on the field. Off the field, that's a whole different story, probably a whole different episode, maybe. But on the field, this guy is a baller. This guy's a great quarterback. Um, say what you want. There's a
What?
reason Dabo Sweeney said he was Michael Jordan coming out of college.
It's true. I'm thinking, I'm looking at him and saying, what happens if for some reason he's not able to play and the Browns just gave up everything? They
Well,
traded everything.
that's the thing. The way that they did his contract, something tells me they expect him not to play either most of the season, the majority of the season, or even the whole season. Um, but that guaranteed money, wow. Yeah. I mean, even if he doesn't play this whole season, that still feels like you gave up that much for him. You paid him that much money. You're not even going to be able to play him in one of his physical prime years, and that'll be 2 years out of the NFL, football scene, basically. That's crazy to me, but it's by far to me the most impactful. Maybe not by far, but it is the most impactful in my opinion. And the second one is rather close, I guess. It's Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos have a really good young roster. Their defense is still really good. Drafting Patrick Surtain II was a really good choice. He's a great corner already. Um, Now you add a quarterback, probably the main ingredient they were missing this entire year, or last few years actually, is a quarterback. Basically, since Peyton Manning, now you have it. This guy is a great deep ball thrower, probably the best deep ball thrower in the league. He's a good leader. Say what you want about Mister Unlimited, but Russell's a really great player, and I expect him to make a lot of plays. And man, can we just the AFC West? Holy crap! The entire AFC really is just like we're tired of getting our butts kicked by the Chiefs, going 7 straight years of playoffs, which is the most of any NFL team. 4 of those 7 years are back to back to back to back AFC championship games, and the AFC has said we're tired of it. They're going out, they're getting quarterbacks, they're loading up, and that brings me to the scariest team probably on my radar, the Chargers. These people traded for Khalil Mack and they signed JC Jackson, and I have that tied for third most impactful uh, additions to their team. Khalil Mack, you know, he's probably getting towards the end of his physical prime, but the guy can still rush the passer. And when you've got people on the other side like Joey Bosa eating up blockers, you definitely can get to the passer. And if they draft who I think they might draft, just even worse. And J.C. Jackson in his physical prime, a great quarterback, gets him on a pretty good deal, 3 years, $40 million. I think is what I saw. Might be more than that. Stupid. They've got ballers everywhere. They're going to be able to compete. They're going to be a Super Bowl contender this year.
So
Since they're
let's
tied, what's that?
let's so you're talking about there's a few things there. So one, JC Jackson, his contract I think was like 16.5 million per year, which puts him as like the sixth highest paid corner, and the markets usually trend up. So the fact that
Yeah.
they got him at a pretty good salary, and then you're talking about remind the people who you have the Chargers drafting.
The 340-pound Georgia monster that eats linemen for breakfast. He's Jordan Davis.
Yep. If you
Four
imagine
seven
Jordan,
40.
pick your poison. If that happens, oh my gosh, talk about a lethal pass rush. I don't even know. That line would be insane. Because who you're getting? You got to double team someone. Surely you can't leave one on one across the. I don't know.
I don't know. It's gonna take a good line. Speaking of offensive lines, my next move is the Colts trading for Matt Ryan today. I think that makes Matt Ryan and the Colts automatically Super Bowl contenders. A great running. What happened the last time Matt Ryan had a great running game? They went to the Super Bowl. This offensive line is going to keep him upright. They're going to be able to run the ball. They've got some really good wide receivers. They've got a decent wide receiving core, so he'll be able to spread the ball around. Their defense is, coming of age. Darius Leonard is a stud. Has been a perennial All Star. Yeah, the Colts are someone to look out for. They were someone to look out for last year, to be honest. If it weren't for volatile quarterback play, my number 6 move here is Amari Cooper. I have it as number 6 because this is a number 1 wide receiver, really, that got traded for crumbs. There are a lot of teams that probably could have offered a lot better than fourth and fifth and just didn't do it. Is his contract great? Probably not, but there are a lot of teams that had the space to grab him and didn't do it for crumbs, basically. I mean, these are little breadcrumbs that, your dog sits underneath the table and waits that you drop on the floor. The Browns apparently found those on the ground and picked them up and said, "Here, you can have it, Dallas Cowboys. You overpay anyway." So, Amari Cooper, number 6. My number
It
7 is
blows.
Levante. Oh,
It blows my mind. You're watching. So like the trade market for quarterbacks is outrageous.
yeah.
You like Matthew Stafford last year. You see what Deshaun Watson goes for this year. Russell Wilson. But what is going on with the rest of positions? Wide receivers, like you said, going for crumbs. I was dying that my Eagles did not trade for him. He has torched the Eagles multiple times. I would be super excited to pair him with Devontae Smith. And I was thinking, he may cost too much. I thought at least he's gonna go for a third, maybe even a second breadcrumbs, like you said.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Speaking of wide receivers, my number 7 is Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams going to the Raiders. This is impactful in 2 ways. It makes the Raiders more dangerous on offense. It gives them a wide receiver that doesn't have off the field issues, and it's impactful in the fact that the Packers now lost their number 1 target. What what is Brian Gutekunst doing? I don't know. Like, this is the stuff that Howie Roseman does. Like, we and even Howie Roseman re-signed Fletcher Cox, the other day. So that was Brian Gutekunst might be worse than I don't know. I don't know. I'll ask Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure he has an answer. But yeah, Devontae Adams going to the Raiders. I think that is a very intriguing pairing with returning to Derek Carr. Derek Carr and Devontae, I think, went to college together. I think they played college ball together. And Derek Carr had his best year last year. Give him Devontae Adams. Let's see. You got an even better wide receiver this year. I'm interested to see what he does with him.
So I had a Packers fan reach out to me after that trade, and they just texted me why. They wanted to know why the Packers would trade Devontae Adams, why they only got a first and second in return, which given the wide receiver trade market, that's actually pretty good. But then I was thinking about, I'm like, there's no way to me Aaron Rodgers comes back. They say that he knew that Devontae Adams wasn't going to be there. So I actually think I told him, I said, hang on, because what if this is pure speculation on my part? But what if there's a deal in place? What if the Packers say, we're going to get you some wide receiver help, whether it be in free agency, which now options are running thin there, but the draft. So now they have 2 first-round picks. Do not rule out the Packers taking 2 wide receivers or maybe a wide receiver and an offensive lineman. But I have a hard time believing that Rodgers returns to Green Bay, even on that ridiculous contract, without having some assurance that they're going to put weapons around him on his offense.
Very valid points. I just it doesn't seem like a win now move to me. And with Aaron Rodgers and his age, that just doesn't seem like something I would do if I were the GM of the Packers. And obviously, I'm the greatest GM of all time, apparently, given my track record of not ever being the general manager of an NFL team. But anyways, moving on. Apparently, we'll go to my number 8, Juju Smith-Schuster. So this is impactful in 2 ways. One, we lose Byron Pringle. We, as the Chiefs lose Byron Pringle. He signs for $6 million a year, I think a year, guaranteed. I think fully guaranteed the $6 million. With the Chicago Bears, we sign Juju Smith-Schuster for $3 million guaranteed. 10, the rest are incentive laden, and he's got a better overall career and he's much younger than Byron Pringle by, I think, 2 years. He's still only 25. This guy's like 2 years removed from 1,400 yards. Even the year before this past season, he had 800 yards and 9 touchdowns. If he does that, the Chiefs' offense looks like 2018 again. You've got Hall of Famer trajectory in Tyreek Hill. You got a Hall of Famer in Travis Kelce. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster. McCole Hardman looked really good last year. You finally have an offense and a wide receiver now that takes coverages away from the 2 other main stars. And this is Andy Reid. So it's not like everyone gets a set amount of targets. Andy Reid moves everyone around the field. They play everywhere. They play every position. And whoever gets open gets the ball. So I think that makes the Chiefs offense scarier. And I think it's basically a proverbial middle finger to the rest of the AFC West saying, fine, you can load up on other talent. We're going to load up our offense again. We're going to make it scarier. And you guys are going to have PTSD thinking about 2018 whenever we come to play you. So I think that's one of the most impactful offseason transactions.
Look at what happens. So last year, the Chiefs go without Sammy Watkins, and that didn't seem like a huge deal. I saw a lot of people saying, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And I was saying then, I was like, this is a bigger deal than you think. You have to have a number 2 receiver on the outside. I understand they have Travis Kelce, who is arguably the best tight end in football right now, but you have to have a number 2 wide receiver on the outside. Juju Smith-Schuster is every bit of capable, probably more capable than Sammy Watkins was his last year in Kansas City. Take some pressure off Tyreek Hill. take some pressure off Travis Kelce, take some pressure off the run game. And I think the Chiefs, Juju Smith-Schuster should be celebrating more than anybody because he just revived his career going to everyone eats in the Chiefs offense. So he's going to go there. He'll get plenty of targets.
He should have came last year. That was a mistake by him. I hope he thinks about that. My number 9 is I think these people have had the second best offseason, and it's very underrated behind the Chargers. It's the Jets. They got 5 guys that I feel like aren't being talked about enough. 2 of them I think could easily be on this list, but there's so many good ones here. I just put them all at 9. CJ Uzoma from the Bengals, they signed him. Tyler Conklin signed him. DJ Reed and Jordan Whitehead. These are quarterback and safety, very young, 25, both 25 years old. Very talented, skilled players. This is how they're building their team. They've got some cheap contracts here. Laken Tomlinson for a guard. So they're saying basically we're going to beef up our defense, give you a weapon, and give you some protection on the offensive line. So Zach Wilson, it's time to put up some numbers this year. My number 10 is Allen Robinson. So I think the Allen Robinson signing for 3 years, I think is what they signed him for. I think that lets us know. I don't know if they're sure about Odell Beckham and his injury. And I don't know if they're confident in that they're going to bring him back for the right price. But I think this move is impactful in 2 ways. I think it removes some much needed talent off the Bears. I'm honestly not quite sure why they got rid of him. I know he's 29, but he's a good route runner, and you got a young quarterback who needs a safety valve, and you kind of took that away from him. On the other side of things, now you have a talented route runner alongside another talented route runner who had probably the greatest wide receiver season I have ever seen with my own eyes. And you put him alongside Matthew Stafford for his quarterback. So now he's got Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford as his running mates. There's a chance Odell Beckham can come back. I'm not too confident about it at this point, but you never know. I'm not an oracle. But I think that's impactful because it just makes the Rams offense still difficult to stop and difficult to deal with. And I think Sean McVay is just going to have another field day with his offensive weapons.
I think it's interesting that they let go of Robert Woods, who has just played extremely well in Los Angeles, and who is great friends with Cooper Kupp. It was more than just teammates; they were actually great friends. So I think that was an interesting move. He goes to the Titans, of course, but Allen Robinson, I think that offense looked incredible last year. They had the 6th ranked passing attack. I don't think they're going to miss a beat. I think Robert Woods might fit that offensive scheme a little bit better than Allen Robinson, but we'll see. I still think he'll have a good season.
Yeah.
That's a pretty great list. I was going to count mine down from 10, but now I'm going to follow your lead, and I'm going to start at the top. But I did want to mention I just had 2 honorable mentions, guys that didn't make my list. My first one is going to be Amari Cooper. I do think that's a big time move, getting him there in Cleveland. They need a number 1 wide receiver. My thing is, if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, I don't know that Amari Cooper makes that big of a difference next year. The Browns are going to have a terrible season. I guess, well, unless if Baker Mayfield for some reason stays, which I don't see happening. I can't imagine him wanting to play, even if Deshaun Watson's not there next year, knowing what they just gave up to bring him in and take his seat. I don't see him doing that. But yeah, so I didn't put him on the list just because of the uncertainty surrounding the Browns. But there's Roger Goodell again.
He always interrupts our shows. I'm so
every
tired.
time. I know you're watching, Roger. You gotta stop. That shows that I'm on to something. That's how we know. My other honorable mention is going to be Chandler Jones. I think Chandler Jones is a great player. I think he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. He did slow down a little bit last year after the beginning of he started the season off amazing. He had 5 sacks in 1 game, but then he started slowing down. He still had a very productive season. He had 10.5 sacks. But I didn't put him on the list because his production was falling off a little bit. He is going to be 32 years old when the season starts, and he got signed for a $17 million a year contract. So I didn't put him on my list. But here is the guys. Here are the guys who made my list. So this is kind of cheating. I don't know if this is fair, but my number one is actually Aaron Rodgers returning to Green Bay. So, he didn't change teams, but I'm like, that is huge. All year long, the talk is that Aaron Rodgers will be leaving Green Bay. And I kept telling everybody, I was like, I think he'll either stay in Green Bay or he'll retire. I didn't see him going anywhere else. The only way I could see him leaving was if a lot of people had speculation of him going to Denver. I thought if somehow Denver got him and Devonta Adams, which seemed pretty much impossible, then I could see him changing teams. Otherwise, I thought he would stay put. The Packers saw what life without him could be. They did not. They're not ready for that. And Aaron Rodgers gets the highest paying contract, I believe. I don't know if Deshaun Watson's deal beat it or not. I don't think so. But a reported deal. But Aaron Rodgers gets $50 million per year, and he returns to Green Bay. So that's my number one. Back-to-back MVPs. Huge.
Very huge.
My number, yes. So it's quarterback-driven league. My number two is another quarterback. It's Russell Wilson going to Denver. I've got him at number two because Denver gave up a king's ransom to get him. They gave up 5 picks, including 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and they gave up 3 starters. So they gave up a ton to get him, but Russell Wilson comes in. He does fill the need. They've needed a starting quarterback since Peyton Manning. They need a franchise quarterback. They've had, I guess, starting quarterbacks. But they – right. I don't mean any disrespect. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater played pretty well last year. But bring in Russell Wilson, that changes everything. They have some good young receivers on that team. They have a good offensive line on that team, much better than he had in Seattle. And they had to, given the look of the rest of the AFC West. You don't want to be in that division without a quarterback right now because you would stand no chance. I don't know that Russell Wilson alone gives him a shot at winning the division, because the only reason that they might is because they'll have an easier schedule than the rest of their division opponents. But you look at how good the Chiefs are, obviously, as long as Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill are there, they got to be the favorites. And then the Chargers, yeah, they look dangerous.
Don't remind me.
Yes. I'm excited to watch that. I don't know who's coming out of the division next year, but they will have earned it.
Yep, it's going to be a gauntlet for sure.
It'll be tougher. We all talked about how good the NFC West looks going into last year. I would argue that the AFC West looks even tougher this year. My number 3 is another quarterback, Deshaun Watson, going to Cleveland. I got him at number 3 mostly because, quite frankly, he just missed a year of football. So when that happens, we saw what happened to Le'Veon Bell. He's gone for 1 season, comes back, never looks the same. Deshaun Watson's now missed an entire year. We don't even know what's going to happen with the legal allegations still. There's still a chance he may not play next year. And then the talk about a ransom, my gosh, the Browns gave up 6 picks, 3 of those being first-round picks. If he does not play, the Browns are in massive trouble. Doesn't even explain. I can't say what I want to say, but they will be in a tough spot. But I think there's no way they make that trade without, I think, talking to someone, either Goodell or somebody in the league office, and saying, like, as things currently stand, would he be able to come and play for us next year? I think they would have to receive a yes on that to be able to give up that much compensation. But I've got him at my number 3. My number 4, and this is my last quarterback, so top 4 picks, all quarterbacks, it's Matt Ryan going to Indianapolis. You talked about the volatile play from Carson Wentz, you referenced. I would say that a huge problem, he did fall off at the end of last season, but he threw 27 touchdowns and to 7 interceptions. I think they need to address the receiving core. They have no legitimate number 1 receiver on that team.
Yep.
You've got T.Y. Hilton as your top receiver, and he is well beyond his prime. He has suffered numerous very serious injuries. He's still a good player when he's on the field, but that's not very often. They just don't have a number 1 wide receiver. They have a rotating door at tight end, a bunch of talented guys, like Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox, but again, those guys they're not top level tight ends. They're just decent tight ends. But Matt Ryan can do a lot with very little. We've seen him do it a few times in Atlanta, and whenever he does have good team, a good offensive line, good run game, and if they can get him a receiver in the draft, people I think have always underappreciated how good Matt Ryan is. He's about to have 60,000 career passing yards. He's thrown, I think, 327 touchdowns, I believe is how many he has. It
Something
may
like
be more than that. It might be even more than that. He's been incredible throughout his entire career. So I think he comes in. He is better than Carson Wentz. He is better than Philip Rivers. I think the Colts should have been Super Bowl contenders last year. They did not perform at that level. I think coming in this year, they have to be. Matt Ryan elevates them even more. I look, and especially in the AFC South, it's not that tough of a division. You're going to have the Texans and the Jaguars have improved a lot in the offseason. They made some really good moves, but I still think the Colts sweep those two teams. And they might split with Tennessee, so I see the Colts winning that division. My number 5, my first non-quarterback, is Davante Adams going to Las Vegas. Wow. I think he's still the number 1 receiver in the league. He's a great route runner. He has great hands. He catches everything. He gets to go play with his former college teammate, Derek Carr. They give up a first and a second, like we said earlier. For the wide receiver market, that's really good. But for a perennial all-pro player who's probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, he is just wrecking the league season after season. I don't think he'll put up the numbers he put up in Green Bay going to Vegas, but I still think he's incredible. And the Raiders really need another team that needs a number 1 receiver on the outside. Hunter Renfrow is a stud in his own right, but you got to get him some help. Davante Adams changes that entire offense. They have Derek Carr's. Say what you will, a lot of people don't like Derek Carr. I've never made any sense of it. I think he has played pretty well almost every year he's been there. He has overcome mediocre talent around him, and he's always played at worst, I guess you could say, average. But I would say he's been above average every season he's been there. So now he has the best receiver he's ever had. He has Darren Waller to partner with him, Hunter Renfrow in the slot, Josh Jacobs in the running back spot, and a decent offensive line too. So I'm like, Derek Carr is about to have a career year, I believe, and I'm super excited to see him and Davante Adams back together.
Davante Adams as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Wow.
His career's not even over
yet,
but
considering the logjam at wide receiver, I don't know, but his career isn't over, so
I think he's putting up good enough. Like, you look at Terrell Owens, the only reason he doesn't get in first ballot is because of they questioned whether someone with those character issues should be first ballot. That's why he didn't show up to Canton to receive his jacket. He had a private ceremony.
I love T.O.
But I think Davante Adams, if he continues to play at the level he has, I think for sure he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. My number 6 is your nightmare. It's J.C. Jackson going to the Chargers. And this is a 2-for-1 because I put Khalil Mack in there as well. You did the same thing. They get Jackson and Khalil Mack going to the Chargers. That defense is incredible.
It's scary. You say nightmare, but it actually is. Like, I actually had a dream about it the other night. It's terrifying.
So J.C. Jackson, last 2 years, he's had 17 interceptions. And then you look at Khalil Mack. He played like, what, I don't even know, half the season last year. He finished with 6.5 sacks.
2018 was the last time he had double-digit sacks, but he's like their only good pass rusher. I mean, he was the man on the Bears defense. So everyone was scheming to, tell me where Mack is on the field. We're going to figure out a way where he gets double teamed every single game.
And he was still putting up 6.5 sacks, 8 sacks. It's not like he was 1 or 2 sacks a season. He's still productive, getting double teamed every snap.
Yep.
Like you said earlier, partner him with Bosa. They can no longer double team him every play. One of those guys are going to be able to break free. If they draft Jordan Davis, which ever since you said that, I'm like, they better. because that just makes sense. That's what gives them a monster defensive line, and in the AFC West going into next year, you're going to have to stop these elite quarterbacks because each team has one now. My number 7 is kind of a group. It's the Cincinnati Bengals bringing in offensive line help. So that was their biggest weakness. We all knew it going into the season. Everyone was talking about should they take Jamar Chase in the first round, given the weakness they had at the offensive line positions. But they bring in Lyle Collins, Alex Kappa, and Ted Karras. So they bring in 3 starting linemen. They have a great receiving core, that will have a really good running back, and they have arguably one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL, in Joe Burrow. So that's my number 7. Number 8, Brandon Sheriff going to the Jaguars. The Jaguars have a lot of problems they have to get fixed. The good news is I think they have a franchise quarterback, and so you got to protect that person. So Brandon Sheriff coming in, he's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He made the Pro Bowl last year. So I think he comes in, he's going to keep Trevor Lawrence upright, and I really think the Jaguars are going to take a big leap forward next year. I still don't think that they're even close to being a playoff team, but I look for them to win 6 or 7 games next year, be more competitive than they were last year.
I definitely think they way overpaid for their receiving core, but Brandon Scherf was a good pickup. I think they got my numbers here say 3 years, $49.5 million for Brandon Scherf. I think that's a good contract for the quality of player and his age. He's 30. So yeah, I think that's a great pickup.
I agree, and yeah, I mean they paid a lot for him too, but given what they were giving up for wide receivers like Christian Kirk, my gosh, they paid a fortune
$72 million for what are you thinking?
He never even had a 1,000-yard season. Like I don't understand why you're paying that much money. But
It's
Brandon Sheriff,
stuff like that where it's like now the agents are like, "Hey, I got a top line wide receiver here. Christian Kirk got 72 million over 4 years. My guy's way better. That's the floor now? Are you stop it."
either that or everyone else is like, wow, that agent needs a promotion. First of all, whatever he's getting paid, double it because that's insane. Maybe, hopefully, the rest of the teams don't follow that lead because otherwise, no one's going to be able to afford elite wide receiver help. My number 9 is an Eagle. It's Hassan Reddick. He's coming in. Now I'm going to explain why. I'm not saying Hassan Reddick is better than Chandler Jones. I left Chandler Jones off the list, and I haven't mentioned Von Miller. But Hassan Reddick, I've got my number 9 because he's younger than Von Miller. He's younger than Chandler Jones. He's 27. Those guys are 32 and 33, respectively. And he's had more sacks in the past 2 years than either of them. He had 23 and a half sacks the last 2 years. That's phenomenal production. He comes in, he signs a lower cost contract than either of those two guys. They're making $17 million and $20 million a year. He signs a $15 million a year contract, which at the time I thought was too high. But then I watched a 33-year-old sign a $120 million contract. I said, you know what? It's not that bad. It's not that bad. We can live with that. So I think that I put him at number 9 for those reasons. I think that's a pretty good bargain for the amount of talent that he has shown in the NFL. And the Eagles need, I think he's going to line up as an outside linebacker. He'll be versatile. He'll stand up some plays. He'll probably have his hand in the dirt and others. But the Eagles linebacking core is horrendous. So I think he comes in, he fills a massive void, and he's a great pass rusher. And we've got Derek Barnett on the open market. He's probably not going to come back. I don't know. We'll see if it doesn't seem like the market's too hot on him, so maybe we can get him back on a decent deal. But yeah, I've got Hassan Reddick, number 9. Finally, my number 10. He may be overpaid, but he's still a difference maker. It's Von Miller. That's where I put him. Like I said, 33 years old, $120 million contract over 6 years. He's not going to play 6 more years, so I'm confused what this deal even is about. The Bills bring in a much-needed pass rusher. He has been productive. He had 17 and a half sacks over the last 2 years. we saw in the playoffs he wreaked havoc. He had like 5 sacks, 5.5 sacks, or something like that in the playoffs. So big time contributor. And the Bills are going to be in the playoffs next year unless it's something horrendous happens. Knock on wood. But the Bills look really good. So as long as that's you talked about earlier about when now moves and how the Packers aren't making them. Well, the Bills are making them, whether they're overpaying or not. You bring in Von Miller, who next year clearly makes that defense better.
Yeah, I'm just worried that they've mortgaged their future, but I mean they have to know. Like they have to know he's not going to play for 6 more years. I bet you most of that contract is if they're smart, which they are, probably most of that contract is roster bonuses and incentives, which means it doesn't hit the cap hardly at all except for the guaranteed money, and I bet you they built that into the equation. They just made it big to entice him, so I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I still think it'll be interesting to see. I think the Bills are going to be tough. They brought in Jamison Crowder as well.
He's
He
athletic.
doesn't he
He's a
doesn't
good wide
deserve to be
receiver.
mentioned as top 10, but I think that they needed another receiver outside of Stephon Diggs. They have Cole Beasley, but now they also have Jamison Crowder. So they have two of the best slot receivers in the league.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do they still have Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs, and Jamison Crowder, or did
I
Emmanuel
believe
Sanders
Emmanuel
leave?
Sanders is on the open market.
Is he?
I
Okay.
think he is. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm fairly certain that he is. They also brought in OJ Howard, the tight end from Tampa
That's
Bay.
right.
So that's pretty big. And then they have Knox, who, as the Chiefs saw firsthand, he can step up in
Yeah.
big moments.
Yeah.
He scored 2 or 3 touchdowns that year, or in that game. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, I just had 200 yards. I don't know what it is about these wide receivers getting 200 yards in some of the biggest games of our season, but it needs to stop, Steve Spagnuolo. It needs to stop.
And he's a tight end though, and he does that. But the good news is the Chiefs won that game, so that works out.
Barely. We needed 13 seconds in an overtime to do it, but we
That's
did
why
it.
you pay Patrick Mahomes the amount of money he makes.
That's right. Most impactful offseason move was actually 2 years ago, signing a 10-year deal. We have those guaranteed mechanisms that convert most of the salary into, roster bonus, which clears cap space, which is how we're able to sign Juju and Justin Reed and maybe another one.
You're good.
Yeah. Well, not Howie Roseman. I'd say your list was pretty good. I wasn't even thinking in terms of someone who returned to their team. I was just thinking of people who left their team to go to a different one. So the Aaron Rodgers one just completely escaped my mind, but that is a fantastic pick for number 1 because you're exactly right. The amount of impact after all these years where the Packers have just seemingly disappointed Aaron time after time after time, and years since Aaron was drafted of not drafting a skill position in the first round, you're probably right. They're probably like, we're sorry. We're gonna do it this year. We're gonna draft maybe 1 or 2. We'll see. We've got 2 first rounders now. They're gonna draft some wide receivers. If they don't, I'm retiring. I'm done. Football's gone.
I know I made the questionable move of drafting 2 wide receivers in the first round for the Eagles during our mock draft, but now it's very legitimately could happen for Green Bay.
It's become a trend now, probably. We've
They must have
started
saw our
something.
video and Green Bay said, "Hold on a second, that's a great idea. We should make it happen."
Yeah. Exactly. They learned, like, you can't whiff on a wide receiver if you take all the good ones
It's true.
first.
That is true.
Well, there you have it. That's our top 10 most impactful offseason moves. If you want to hear more, hit the like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell on YouTube. That'll let you know when we post more videos. We have 4 or 5 out right now, including head coaches, a mock draft. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out. You can follow us at Dylan Dueker and at Christian Lunde on Twitter, and you can follow at Dueker Sports on Twitter. You can also follow at Dueker Sports on Facebook. If you do that, we put content out every week, including videos and articles. We also write. We fancy ourselves writing connoisseurs that can spell 3-letter words. We're pretty awesome like that. Yeah, and comment below. Your engagement is important. When you comment, it lets the YouTube algorithm know that people are interested in this show, and it gets it bumped up so more people can see it and engage. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Let us know how you feel about our lists. We're the best two GMs in the game, but if you think you're better, go ahead and go ahead and comment on the comment section, and we'll read it. We read every single one of them. This has been another episode of Duker Sports.